And we're back. Welcome to the Friendlyjordies Podcast, where we discuss the latest political events and some incredible insights mixed with dick jokes. Mostly dick jokes. How big is your penis, miss?
Well, we've discussed this
At
length.
You know what?
And it is pretty long, but not that long. That's the definitive answer that we came to.
That's what we're going to stick with. I'm not going to say it on Twitch just because it's just like a gut feeling. It's like, I don't know if I should. Just tune in up late and I'll answer it straight away.
No, but we all know that the more that you talk about your cock, the more chicks get interested in it. Yes. And you're the single man now. You are the pimp of the podcast now.
And
True. That Ali's taken.
If you like them long, hit me up. If you like them thick, stay the fuck away.
Yeah, I like it heaps because it rhymes. That's the main reason I like that saying.
Is that a saying, or did Ali just make it?
He made that up.
I just made that up.
Of course it's not a saying. How would that stick? That's like saying a saying is like, the horse with the thickest mane tends to be inconsequential to the race. What a saying.
Hey, works for me. All right.
Oh, I thought it was pretty glib.
Jordan, you were dropping some truth bombs this afternoon when I came. It kind of clicked. Why? So, Miss Lowe, have you heard? You probably have. You work for the Friendlyjordies ecosystem. Yeah. You should know that the polls are suggesting that Labor and the Liberal are neck and neck. That's what I saw last.
Yeah.
Yes, as Miss Love discovered, the LNP, the Labor National Party, is now neck and neck and competitive.
The Labor, the LNP, the Labor National Party, is head to head with the ALP, the Australian
Liberal Party.
That's correct.
That's why they're called a coalition.
Yeah. and they are a coalition with the Green Party.
The Commie-alition.
Yeah, Commie-lition.
The Commie-alition.
Yes. I knew that. Damn, now you're schooling me, miss. I didn't realise that's what the Labor Greens Alliance was. But now you've given me a lot to think about, as you always point out. I think is the only political point Miss Love has ever made. You see this? This is the same colour as Labor, and that's red. And I realise you can't see that on camera.
No, now they can.
Why?
Oh, wait, they can't.
No, they can't.
No, now they can.
You can't see it. But
think about it.
Miss
Love has for the last 5 years still coming to a conclusion.
But I still want to know Jordan's point because I wasn't aware of it, and it's actually pretty cool. So what's happening? What's the grand change in the paradigm, Jordan?
Well, if you look at the polls, once JobKeeper kicked in, obviously Scott Morrison was going to get a massive lead, and I was always of the opinion that, well, that's it. Labor shouldn't change their leadership. I really do think that Anthony Albanese was their best bet and still is. But I thought there's no way that you can win this election. And I'm still very sceptical that they can. But Anthony Albanese was always saying, steady as she goes. And in the fourth quarter, as they say in the footy, we'll be kicking with the wind.
Dude.
And potentially we are getting to the fourth quarter. And kind of right. He's saying,
if he can pull it off, I will be so happy. But sorry, continue.
But you're a Labrador. You're always happy.
Yeah, but I'll be more happy.
I don't think that's possible.
I think his point was that the Liberal Party, first off, people don't necessarily like the Liberal Party. It's just that the Labor Party gets so much negative coverage every election that they should just be taking wise what the party machinery has always been saying. And I think that might help with him as well, is that he's a staffer boy. He didn't grow up in the unions, and the unions are always of the opinion that you should be campaigning, which I fully understand because they're unions. When you're a political staffer, you would have a different upbringing, and they are super risk averse. I personally agree with campaigners, but again, it's because I basically am a campaigner. I'm supposed to just be a loudmouth, but when you're running as a politician, they have this saying that in Sussex Street, they wonder, which is where the Labor Party headquarters is, they think about how to stay off the front page of the Telegraph. And in Macquarie Street, which is where the Liberal Party is, they think about how to stay on the front cover of the Telegraph. For obvious reasons. But what they're trying to do, and this is exactly what Albanese has done, is just remain invisible the entire time.
That's Biden. That was Biden's strategy too, right?
Genius.
And he's kind of right because it's just like it doesn't give the press an opportunity to hate you. And he's always choosing the safe response. And you see all these numpties on Twitter saying, "Oh, I can't believe it. He's so ineffective. He never says anything. He just answers with such bland answers." Yes, that's what he's doing. You know what he is? He's the John Howard of the Labor Party.
So you're
That's so mad, dude.
But John Howard was always on. Like he was a media darling, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he himself was a very boring man. I remember being interested in politics, and I just used to think the reason that I don't understand this is because I'm 12. But then I went back and listened to his speeches. You zone out. He's the prime minister of a country. He should have interesting things to say. He doesn't have anything interesting to say. It's just kept interest rates low, and I believe that George Bush is a nice man. That's all of his speeches. And
And that gets Miss Love's seal of approval.
Texas has good barbecue. We don't different kind of barbecues we get in Australia, so it's nice to mix it up. That's why I like it.
yeah. It's a little too ethnic for my palate.
And my palate.
And I still to this day have not gotten the answer to what exactly is ranch dressing.
I was coming to terms with pesto, and now you brought all this new stuff at me. The Italian.
Pesto was, as they say in Leichhardt, very zany.
Still can't get my head
And then
around
I've got to
olive
admit,
oil.
basil is a good herb.
Can't get my head around it. I was of the opinion that Australia didn't need olive oil, as canola oil already existed.
But then
And
being a
Australian
fan,
canola oil is far superior to European olive oil. But I still want to know more about, I want to know, you had another point too.
Oh, yeah, all right. So go, stop just banging out Howard.
So
but yeah, he's just, look, I feel really bad that I made the title of that video stand-up show that you should buy, available at Friendlyjordies, because there's good information in it, but I wish that I didn't call it Why John Howard Really Sucks, because I think personally as a man, he is the most likable Prime Minister we've ever had. And you know what it is? He's just not, he doesn't have a big ego. He hates arrogant people.
Yeah,
He hates people that are narcissistic. And he, almost as much as he hates the unions.
Apparently Biden's the exact same.
What?
Hates ego. One of the first instructions that he made to his staff was that if I see anyone at any point talking down to another staff member in the team, doesn't matter, cleaner, whoever, if I see that, I promise you I will fire you at that spot in front of everyone.
amazing. That's so funny.
And then I remember that his second order was, what does this button do on White House desk? And he pressed it.
Don't say should a nuke.
Nah, I think he'd know where those are. He's pretty familiar with Washington.
Oh, is that
being
the
there a while.
Pepsi button?
Isn't that incredible?
Because that's the only
No, it wasn't
button.
Pepsi. Yeah, what does this button do? He presses the button, and then a door opens, like one of those Bond villain doors, and in comes a butler with a Diet Coke.
That's the funniest thing I've heard all year. All year, dude.
That's what Trump's edition of the White House was.
Wait, what?
Yes.
And it's funny because it's
Demanded it.
not even
It
a
was an
joke.
executive order.
Sign that shit. This is actually
Isn't it amazing? Like, it was
it's
just
not
this-
even a joke.
It was so on demand that it didn't even need a menu. There was no understanding. The butler is at the ready because it just happens so frequently throughout the day. He's just there ready to go. Your Diet Coke, sir. Who the hell are you? I'm your butler. I provide the Diet Coke. Get the hell out of here. Very good, sir. It was a pleasure working for you.
No, Connor worked for Trump.
Yeah, he did. I know.
Oh,
Are you sure you don't want to try Coke Zero? No? Very good.
that's so nourishing. That is the food equivalent of being given a minestrone soup made by some babushka in the hills of Bologna. I feel like I've eaten. I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah. It has that feeling, doesn't it?
Holy shit.
That's what Trump had on his desk. It's so good. It's just, dude, you know what Trump was? Look up to that poster. It was Richie Rich. It's just Richie Rich grown up. That's him.
Yeah, that's a real Richie Rich move.
Don't you think? And there's probably just a lever on the desk to the side. You open that up and there's a McDonald's on the other side that opens up.
Don't you think it's like way less of an effort? Like,
And he did do that. He did go into the White House and he was just like, okay, there's the executive order. We're going to bring in the Chicago Bulls and we're going to feed the McDonald's.
He did do that.
He did that as
He
well.
did do
Richie
that.
Rich.
He is Richie Rich.
He's
How
Richie
much
Rich.
more of an effort is it to just pick up a phone and say, "Hey, can I have a Diet Coke?" Instead of
I know the button.
a red button.
Doesn't have
there.
time.
He's like, he's sending pictures to Kim Jong Un. He's like, "This button will ruin your life." He's pressing every day for Diet Coke. But come back to the polls, Jordan. What's happening with?
Wait. Did Biden cancel him? Or
Yes. How annoying is that? I wish he kept it just as like well, I respect my opponent and his legacy to this office.
Just change it to all brand.
Yeah,
Easy.
I know. Yeah, it was such an easy move.
Send in my brand drink.
Yeah.
My tummy's acting up again. Like, come
Yes.
on. Anyway, now you
Dude, the greatest president of all times.
Who?
Dude, that's
Trump.
amazing.
Yeah. No. I'm back on board again.
You know, I googled why he loves fast food so much, and it's because he's scared.
MSG, dude. That's why he loves fast
No,
food
it's
so
that
much.
he's scared. Like, he's obviously like patriotic and shit, and he's like the best era for him was like the 80s. So obviously, it's just like McDonald's, but like also because he's scared of people tampering with his food. So it's like, yeah, they get that stuff out in 30 seconds. There's no time for anyone to poison
Dude,
my
good
burger.
point.
That's why.
Good
That's
point.
why he
You
gets
do
it out.
not want to
Really?
be.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm scared someone's going to poison me. He's like, yeah, I got 20 seconds max, and there's no one's going to go back there and get poisoned. I go to some fancy restaurant, some French. I'm not even doing this. It's been so long I've done his accent for so long.
Isn't that amazing? It
French
just
restaurant,
flies
the
in the
poison.
face of that documentary Supersize Me. Because at the end of his presidency, he looked younger and fitter.
Yeah. Well, that's like apparently like, yeah, basically all he eats, which I think is so funny. Him
But
with his
there's
jet-
a lot of people spitting in Trump's food.
Probably, but like no poison. I love
But he's not walking in as the president being like, yeah, can I get some hot wings? He's got someone going there, right?
probably a bit
No,
of both, man.
Maybe
That butler. Huh?
Probably a bit of both.
Eddie?
Like, how hard is it to order food? Like, can I have a Big Mac meal? 7 words.
Yeah, but as the president of the United States, you're just going to walk in there.
You're right. Probably someone, yeah. Because like the poor person working at Macca's is on like below minimum wage job and just like, I can't pay my bills because you. But like, it's not my fault. That's the loony Democrats. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
You're right.
Uh,
Anyway,
No, but like Jordan, coming back to it because
Yeah, sorry,
you
sorry,
were
yeah.
saying something about the polls being affected by the whole Biden administration and the Google fiasco.
Yeah. Well, I think that if you look at the polling, there seems to be a direct correlation because it's been steadily increasing as what Anthony Albanese predicted, and I didn't have faith in his tactic, but I thought that it was a better tactic than what Shorten was doing. Given Shorten's experiment, just do the exact opposite of what he did. But I don't blame Bill Shorten either for trying that tact as well, because he was going for the thought of any publicity is good publicity. So if my name is constantly in the press, at least people will be thinking about me, I guess. But if you look at what happened now where it's just bottomed out, and you look at the recent coverage of Josh Frydenberg freaking out when Google said, we're just going to leave Australia. And then he had to come out and go, no, we're going to negotiate this. Because it's amazing. Ever since they've won this third term, they've been in a rock and a hard place between Murdoch saying, you need to shut Google down because they're really fucking us over. And Google saying, no. And they have had to try and mediate that. And the thing is that obviously if the Labor Party was in, they're just going to pick Google. But the Liberal Party is not in that position. And so this is their... I really think that this is their work choices. Everybody thinks it's just the fact that they did secretly pass work choices in COVID and no one knows because they've just got such a clinch hold on the press now. But
did they?
yeah,
Really?
They sneaked that shit
pretty
through.
much everything that was
that.
in work choices is now legal.
Really?
Under the guise that it's temporary. But let's be honest, is it going to be temporary?
Wow.
Especially seeing as just a couple of months ago, Scott Morrison was very confident that he was going to win the Senate, which I think that good. If he wins the Senate, then we have another 2007. Because that's just the same thing as Queensland. If you really see what the Liberals want to do, people are going to rebel.
Right.
But I think that in this instance, Google was doing, so obviously like Josh Frydenberg is scared and it really shows. And the other thing that you see is that there's all of these Murdoch and Fairfax hacks that keep writing about, my articles are getting buried. They used to be at the front of Google. Now they're like page 9, page 8. And Google is being really, really Chinese about it and being like, oh, deepest apologies. It is just a test. Don't worry. And I think that what is happening is that they are burying stories that are pro-coalition, which is virtually all stories. And so all of the Australian press that is more mainstream is moving further down the algorithm.
I thought conservatives like the free market and freedom of press and freedom of choice.
I don't know if you're taking the piss anymore.
I'm taking the piss.
Wait.
He's making a point.
I'm just saying, like, I'm taking
We get the
piss.
point, though. Just
You get the point, but like elaborate.
I'm just saying, like,
Hypocrites.
ScoMo, push me out with your message, mate. Do you like freedom of speech and freedom of press, or don't you? No, come on. This
One
is
or the other.
too true.
Well,
In the long run, though, are we
It's
getting
hypocrisy.
excited about a bigger evil taking over our immediate evil, which we'll figure out as
Yes.
smaller ones?
Well, see, this is the whole thing. And everybody was so angry at me for saying this, but I completely agree with myself. What a surprise. I did not like the fact that social media companies decided that Parler and Trump are no longer a thing. They decided the president of the United States doesn't get a voice now.
Well,
that is supposed to be the most powerful man on earth. I understand that it's a bit of a charade, but still, it's very symbolic.
Yeah, but also, like, you're not the only one. French finance minister, who by no means is a conservative, he's part of the Macron government, said that he's uncomfortable with the digital oligarchy making decisions like that. Angela Merkel, who, again, is not, like, this conservative right-wing, she said that the whole Twitter banning Trump is very problematic. That's the word that you used. So you're not the only one. That is a legitimate concern. A digital oligarchy is making very big decisions.
Well, what I will say, though, is that I think that big tech companies are run by extremely intelligent younger people. And so obviously what they are doing is they are favouring governments that are environmentally conscious. I really think that is actually a big part of it. And then the other part is that you are stopping us from making money. So where's the incentive in supporting you anymore? So I think that behind the scenes, Google is manufacturing consent now. And I'm fine with that because they're on my side, baby. But like, yeah, I think that in the long run anyway, it's got to be better than Murdoch and the press controlling society, because at least like when it comes to like the press in this country, they have traditionally, in fact, they have their entire 150-year existence. Sydney Morning Herald has supported the Labor Party 6 times. 6 times. And all of those times, you can bet your bottom dollar was because they knew that inevitably the Labor Party was going to win that election, and so they did it so they could get coverage into the next one and being like, see, we're being nice to you. I like the idea of Labor winning 70% of the time. And if that means that they have to compromise on tax evasion or whatever, at least they're passing laws that stop mass special extinction.
We'll talk about tax evasion. The Liberal Party has been like enacting tax evasion laws. They're just making tax evasion legal now. Like all of the tax that people were paying, they're saying that now you don't have to pay that. Like even, small things like, have you noticed how all of the money that was given to companies, these corporations as bailouts, because apparently they were going to lose all of their money, ended up like gaining share prices? So there's a demand to like say, hey, what about that money that you gave them? They not only did you give them bailout money, but they actually ended up making more money than they were supposed to. So, and they're just trying to, and Scott Morrison's response to that was like, I am not in the business of envy. I'm going to leave that to the opposition.
Well said, Scott. Thank God we have that man in charge.
A poet. But surely it's a situation of like, there's always going to be, if there's a power vacuum, there's always going to be somebody in charge. There's always going to be some sort of overarching sort of dominant power force. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the power is for, you're talking about media, right?
No. I'm talking about anything. I'm talking about media, like whether it's media, whether it's Google, whether it's, you know, like, I don't know, like.
And look, this is actually
the guy that created that burger shop that we all went to in Perth or whatever. Remember that place where Ali got a burger for breakfast?
Perth, Brisbane.
I remember him
Carl's
being
Jr.
really sad
Carl's
about it
Jr.
afterwards.
I remember being actually. I don't regret one bit. Carl's Jr. is fucking sick. I didn't even know
Carl's
it was.
Jr.
In
That
this
was the whole thing. Like, I saw his depressed face afterwards, and I
was
would
7
deal
a.m.
with that. I would deal with that.
But
It
you
is
know-
Carl's Jr.
Yeah. So like, whether it's Carl's Jr., Google, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves, someone's going to run the show, right?
Yeah, that's what I think too, Ali. And I just think that,
I mean, I'm asking.
well, I honestly think that Google, by its nature anyway, at least it gives you a shot. I understand that it can also just completely black you out. But what is the difference between that and the current press system at the moment? The current press system is that they don't even give you the opportunity to build a platform in the first place. Whereas Google, it's kind of like, you're no longer serving our interests, you're gone. There really isn't that much of a shift in power. In fact, if anything, there is a slight shift towards content creators and things, right?
That's true.
So I
It's
think,
beneficial
and you know
for
what,
people
especially
like
like, dude,
us.
it is going to benefit
Yes.
yours truly.
Yeah.
In the next election, because I really do think this now. I think that Google will be supporting the Labor Party in the next election, and it'll be interesting to see who of those two win, because it still doesn't mean. I suppose I'm a megaphone, and the Liberal Party still has all of the megaphones in this country. But Google now has the capacity to turn a lot of those megaphones off.
True.
And we'll see how that affects things.
And if
That's
I may
interesting.
suggest, Google, let's try with RV Yemen.
What, turn him off?
No. Turn him up.
Yeah,
Turn him up,
Yeah.
increase the volume.
We need
Yeah.
some truth speakers. Christ.
Yeah, what are you trying to do here, Ali? Keep us all in the dark?
I'm only semi-joking about the truth speakers.
I know you are.
But that's interesting. That makes sense. I can understand how the power dynamics would be shifting. But don't you think that this whole Google bill is a bipartisan thing, though? Wouldn't Labor support it? Who's that chick, the green chick, the Hanson Young? I saw her Senate hearing with the Google CEO, like the Australian Google CEO. She was really hawkish.
What do you mean hawkish?
She was saying, like, she was basically telling the Google CEO that you are saying that either we follow your way or it's the highway. To which the Google CEO wasn't saying this, but like basically she was just saying, yeah, that's what we're saying. But so like
That
what
nerdy
I'm saying
power.
is that does the Labor Party support the legislation or not?
No, they do support the legislation, but again, this is a political tact. I really do not envy their position, right? Because everybody just sits there online constantly bitching and moaning, go, gonna pass that law anyway. The same. But the thing is that if they don't, then the Murdoch press is just going to hit them. They know that if they do that, they have signed their death warrant. You know why they completely turned against Julia Gillard? They gave her an opportunity for a second. And then the contracts came up for, like, I think ABC's foreign channel that goes to, like, I don't know, Fiji and Norfolk Island or whatever.
Oh, dude, by the way, someone said something which is so on point. So I'll let you continue. But they said, Ali, you're the SBS to Friendlyjordies ABC. They're basically saying, Friendlyjordies, you are ABC and I am SBS.
On point. And I'm scoring you.
I'm the drum,
He's
you're the
Canadian.
feed, and you're outsiders.
Yeah, I'm outsiders.
But sorry, continue.
Yeah, and so that came up, and then Gillard said, yeah, we're just going to put this out to tender. In other words, was not going to give Murdoch a sweetheart deal, even though they're just going to offer it. And Kevin Rudd was just saying, fuck you, we're just giving it back to the ABC. But even that wasn't enough. And Murdoch cracked the shits at that, and that's where the coverage just went 100% negative. So they know that if they are going against Murdoch in this vote, then they've signed their death warrant for the next election. They will be punished for that.
Have they don't like you said in whatever the stat that you give that in 80 years Sydney Morning Herald has only supported the Labour Party 6 times. Every time there's an election, the Murdoch media overwhelmingly supports the Liberal Party, and the Murdoch media, like the Vices, the ones that are supposed to be left leaning, stay like either neutral or also against Labour. If the Labour Party changed their tax and instead of saying we'll try to appease them as much as possible, they just openly fucking side with Google. They just say, no, we believe in freedom of net neutrality. We believe that everyone should have the same say. What they get out of that is potentially the overlords' blessings. And also, you get Biden administration's blessings too.
That's true, because I do remember this, that Biden rang up Scott Morrison, and I think that the word on the street was that he was just saying, what the fuck is this Google law? Because obviously his overlords are telling him, get something done about this. And obviously he talked about climate change as well, which is amazing that he has actually done way more for climate change than any human being in history with like the stroke of a couple of pens, which is incredible.
Biden.
Yeah.
Well, his influence was enough that like at the press club.
Rejoining Paris Accord.
Well, that's one of the many actions that he took. But basically, he just signed an executive order saying every US government department now has to put climate policy at the center of its policy build from now on.
And he has instructed the State Department and Pentagon to join climate change with security policy. That with climate change and refugees are security. So he's saying like he's intermixing both of them.
Wow.
But it's also just like knowing that the U.S. is now on the side of climate change. Just that thing,
That's
Biden getting elected without him doing anything is like it had such an effect that did you watch Scott Morrison's press club? I'm the only moron that watches that shit. His speech, he basically completely changed tunes. Jordan actually pointed out that because of Biden. I came up to Jordan, I was like, hey Jordan, have you seen like how Scott Morrison's flip-flopping and he's looking towards a carbon neutral 2050? And Jordan was like, yeah, that's because of Biden. I was like, oh, that makes sense. He's basically, what a fucking...
He's an opportunist.
Sluts, for like lack of a better word. Like when
Scott
Trump
Morrison
comes
is a
in,
full-blown
he's
slut,
nativist. When Biden comes in, he's like, actually, I kind of like wind energy all of a sudden. It does not kill birds anymore.
Yeah. He's the lowest of the low, Scott Morrison.
Show share.
No backbone at all. None. But I think that, yes, it's not at the position. The thing is, with the current power balance, it is really difficult to trick 50% of the population into voting for the coalition when it clearly supports 6 billionaires, right? Like it's an entire power structure and apparatus there to benefit not even the top 0.0001%. Like literally just like, well, it's on more than one hand. That is some representation, that getting that into power all the time is a big ask. And they only ever win usually by a couple of seats. I think that they are just looking, and they wouldn't even know where Google was going to go as well, because maybe Google doesn't give a shit. Maybe I'm just thinking this all in my head, and this is all just a bunch of coincidences that are all lining up. But the Labor Party would be shooting in the dark about this, and I know from talking to people in the Labor Party, they are just, what's the word again? Like learned helplessness, like a Pavlov dog, right? Like they've just been beaten by the Murdoch press and the Fairfax for so long that they kind of just sit there and they're just like, that's enough. I'm like, yes, master. Like they just, that's how they think. So they wouldn't be sitting there being like, let's take a risk and side with Google on this one. And I think that that's the other thing as well, is like, you can, like what happened with the US and what happened with Alex Jones as well, you can turn him off the internet, but he still has radio. So you haven't really silenced him. You've kind of handicapped him.
And you think it's the lesser of two evils? You think it's ultimately it's the lesser of two evils?
Google, as a master,
Yeah.
so much better than the mining industry. In fact,
Well, I mean, in terms
maybe
of
even
environmentalism,
Google.
surely you agree that's
100% in terms of environmentalism.
You know what else would be amazing about Google, even though it wouldn't matter because just mining wouldn't be the same as data, but it would be really good for this country if when data starts to rise in importance and wealth, that they kind of sit there and they're like, yeah, we don't care if you collect your resources revenue anymore. You don't have to ship it to offshore companies.
Right.
You can actually have a tax on resources, and we don't care about that kind of stuff. I think that a lot of those things Google would be fine with. And you know what else as well?
Right.
I think that when it comes to Australia, what do they really want from Australia? They just want our data. They already have that.
You know what?
Dogs.
Yeah, they do want those. Yeah, with cannons on their back. But here's my counter argument. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want that? You would trade your dog for that.
That's scary.
But you
At
know
least
what?
put
I
his
think
brain in one of them.
What Google's incentive is in Australia, I honestly think Google doesn't even care about the money. Like, to them, this is peanuts.
Yeah.
What they care about is the precedent,
example.
right? Like, they don't want... Because Australia's, 25... Which is why I think this was the wrong place to actually bring up about this legislation. You know what would have been a better place? A better fight would have been the UK.
What are they doing the same?
Bigger market. No, they're not. But I'm just saying, like, if instead of Australia, if the UK was passing this legislation, it would matter more. Because, like, at the end of the day, we're too insignificant for Google to completely change their tune, right? So I don't think it's going to happen. I think eventually they will negotiate a settlement. But let's say they don't end up negotiating a settlement. Google will pull out from Australia. The market is too insignificant for them. The money is also insignificant, but the precedent is bad. Because if it works in Australia, it could end up happening in other countries, and that's the worst nightmare for Google.
Does that mean like an exodus to fucking like Yahoo or something?
What?
Yeah.
We'll have. It was apparently
Finally,
there's going to be a new
Koshi's
search.
investment strategy pays off. Have you heard about this?
Apparently, it's going to be called Ask Murdoch.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
They might as well do that and just have like instead, Ask Jeeves, how was the little anime guy? It's just fucking Rupert Murdoch's face, like.
Oh, that's sick. You wouldn't even have to do that much. You pretty much just have to put the glasses on it.
Yeah. Fuck, sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. You definitely, that's what they're really looking for there. They're looking to set an example. And I think, you know what else is really interesting about this? And I think this was all just accelerated by COVID. But out of this, I don't know. Maybe it was the Trump presidency was like the last hurrah for the fossil fuel industry and the banks. But it really does seem like the new masters of the world now are China. And I think that is, like, it's kind of just a foregone conclusion now. Like, the rest of it is kind of just this lag time of everybody Rihanna's still on TV. But in terms of where capital is now, it's in China.
Right.
And I think that that's what happened throughout the COVID thing was that same thing with Scott Morrison. Just Scott Morrison mouthing off. China, again, insignificant. Who cares what Australia thinks? But setting the example and just showing everybody, no, we're in charge now.
Right.
So they just put in trade tariffs just to show the rest of the world, like, you can't, the rules that were there before are no longer there. I think that's what was happening there. And I think that really the United States has kind of what's that anime film? Ghost in a Shell itself.
The States has done that?
Don't you think? The United States has just transmorphed all of its money and all of its intelligence into a giant internet cloud. That's what it is now. It's just in the cloud.
But I mean, that's the whole world.
That is the whole world, but that's what they have been doing. They have been slowly transferring everything that they used to do, as Ali's always constantly pointing out, that the US used to produce things and now it doesn't really do anything. It's just all in the stock market or whatever. And they've been putting more and more of it into Silicon Valley. And so now I think that America is more just... It's
Skynet.
America online as opposed to America.
Skynet.
The other thing is, like, the other thing that I was looking into, you know how Google isn't in China, right? Because of censorship stuff.
It's not
That's technically not true. So yeah, the Google search engine isn't in China, but there's a lot of infrastructure that, because I think what happened from Google's perspective, this is my opinion, they don't care about the censorship stuff. Like, if the U.S. government didn't exist and the U.S. government didn't have like an animosity thing with China, they would be more than happy to censor all the Winnie the Pooh references from Google. But because the U.S. government has this hawkish approach towards China, they can't outrightly say that, yeah, we'll censor it for you. So they ended up having to like move their search engine, but they left the infrastructure over there. So all of the companies that provide that stuff in China they have links with Google, and Google is working with them for other shit too, like creating like, you know, next generation cars that apparently hover, like all of their AI stuff. They are because I think Google recognizes the potential that China is. Well, not just the potential, what it already is. And so they want to have some of their fingers in China too. So what I'm saying is like Google is truly universal at this point. Like they even have their hands in the enemy's pie, even though we'd like to assume that, yeah, China's completely kicked them out.
But isn't America just a model for the world? Like, how's China different apart from like they build more buildings? Ooh, ghost towns. Isn't the whole world going? I mean, obviously everyone, you know, data, sort of, even in terms of like the market. The stock
No.
market,
I think that's
retention.
exactly what. No. First of all, that was an economic philosophy that was put into play, and it was like an economic experiment to see what happens, is what the US started doing in the 80s.
Yeah.
And kind of just stubbornly stuck to for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
China is the opposite. China is...
They do produce. I mean, they are the manufacturing of the world, I suppose. They
But again, they're trying to get rid of it, and they're trying to move into that kind of stuff as
Yeah.
well. But again, America had the idea of just like, let the market decide. Yay.
Yeah.
And I guess at the end of the day, look, they're going to help Labor win the next election. It looks like they were right. But China is not that model. China is not let the market decide. It is the government being like,
Right.
no, I have all the stats in front of me and I don't have a selfish incentive, so I'm going to decide.
Yeah,
But how different is that?
their corporations are fundamentally different. Their corporations often have board of directors, sometimes even manager directors that are straight up Communist Party members. So
But if you're talking about fundamentally different, like, like on a practical level, it might be different. But you know, China has the government power base. America has the corporate power base. Obviously, they're different, but they still have similar interests. Like Google doesn't want America to collapse.
well, that's
not
what,
be
That's
competitive.
what like we need to
Yeah,
prove
but that
now
is
arguing.
not its main focus. That's the difference.
Yeah,
Whereas,
okay,
like,
sure.
I truly do think that. I really do think that Trump, it was such a perfect moment in human history that will just be forgotten and swept over. But that really was the moment that AI took over. The moment where they just blacked Trump out of existence.
Right. Yeah.
Just doesn't exist anymore. You can't see what he's thinking.
yeah.
You'd rather not actually, you know.
That's actually, you know what? But no,
Trump
but-
is
but
Trump
that
is.
But that is kind of a good. Actually, that is a good answer, because it's like China. A government should have the power to do that. I don't know if a company should, and a company did, and they did that. They silenced him.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't happen in China.
No, it'd be the government that, again, Trump wouldn't have happened in China.
Yeah.
As we were pointing out in a previous podcast, Trump would never have been president, and it's nothing to
That
do
was
with
a
his
private
ideology or anything like that.
conversation.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was.
It's never to do with his ideology. It was the fact that he has done no public service. Nothing.
Yeah, like if you ask a Communist Party bigwig, if Obama, like not Trump, like forget Trump, like Obama, George Bush, would they be in a position of power in China? And his response wasn't that I'm not saying that how they're not talented or they did bad jobs. I'm just saying as a rule, Obama or George Bush they would start off as a village leader.
Yeah.
You do not give every Communist Party member that comes to those top position or gets in the Politburo has managed hundreds of millions of people. They keep switching their states, right? Their system
You
is.
mentioned this to
I'm
me,
actually I'm doing like a lot of research on this, and I'm doing a video on Holsworthy Live about this. But their system is so fundamentally different to ours. It's almost unreplicable, but it's become this beast, this efficient beast, where every person that comes into a position of power in China has had incredible experiences. They've managed hundreds of millions of people in different huge states. They've managed trillions of dollars worth of, like I said, you know, how their companies have board of directors and CEOs that are part of these people know exactly how to do things. And they have a lot of fucking experience. So like someone like Obama is super talented. I'd have no doubts about it. But like he had to learn everything when he came into power.
Yeah.
And like he says himself, he was probably in the best position to be the president once he was not eligible for the presidency anymore. He was saying, I think it was on David Letterman or Conan or something, that was like, I've just figured out how to be a president. And that's like, you need experience for that sort of shit. It's just a fundamental flaw that a lot of our Western system has, that we do a lot of stuff on our gut feeling. And China has just completely eliminated that. It's like there's no gut feelings involved. Like you have to pay your dues.
But they're just different beasts. Because again, that.
Well, I'll tell you this though. Like, look, Australia's system isn't as efficient
as well,
but it's a hell of a lot better than America's.
Yeah.
Wait, what system? Australian?
Yeah. Yeah. To get to the position of a premier or to get to the position of prime minister, you can just get elected on a whim. But you really have to do your dues for at least 10 years in Parliament. You need to figure out how it all works.
I'm usually not partisan about this stuff, but that's more true for the Labour Party than for the Liberal Party. The Labour Party, because it was set up on these socialist and communist back in the day ideas, right?
Well,
their system...
Now I'm out again.
All that work undone.
They actually
and they lose by 1 vote in the next election.
They have a better meritocratic system. You have to pay more of your dues than the Labour Party. You get people like fucking Malcolm Turnbull, for instance. He was the prime minister. What did he do? He was an investment banker. That just does not happen in China.
No, I know that, but what I'm saying is he was he was in Parliament for 10 years. It's nowhere near as good as China's model, where it's like you start out. Well, actually, you know what? Obama did start out as a community organizer, and then just got promoted to Senate, and then president.
Yeah, that's what someone was saying. I bet Obama was a community organizer. It's like, yeah, dude, that would get you inside the door in China. Like, if you do that sort of shit, it's like, okay, fine. Now you come in the office, go make me tea. That's what community organization gets you in China.
Go make me tea. Well,
it's a noble job, but have to. Yeah. People that become the head of the Chinese state have been in politics for a minimum 30 to 35 years.
Yeah.
It's just not possible to do it.
You know what? A lot of Americans still sort of like glorify those old days of like the I don't know what the system's called, but it's like I think it's like there's a name for it. It's like. But anyway, that's sort of what that's what apprenticeships were. You know what I mean? It's like America was like that. You had to be in a trade for like 10 years for certain
but not for politics, man. You've got like people like JFK that were like, my daddy has said that I would be a great president. And the tragedy is most Americans think he was a great president.
Was there any presidents that had to work their ass off for like
Lincoln?
A few, but that's just not how. A lot of times, people that actually work their ass off end up not getting elected because they're seasoned politicians.
It's all the other shit.
The Hillary stuff, right? You get someone
but it definitely Hillary. Does. If you look at all of the world leaders. Well, I'm kind of just basing this off Lincoln and Caesar now, but it's definitely true. They faced a lot of adversity to get to the position of power that they were in. And they had a lot of different experiences in different aspects of government. So Caesar, for instance, had time in the military first, and then he moved into like being a magistrate, and then he moved into being consul, and then he moved back to being a general this time, and then he came back. And so he understood how the mechanisms of power in that society actually worked. Yeah. There's a lot of people that just don't. For instance, Trump. Yeah, no idea about governing, never had any interest in running for it, just straight into the job. It's like, why? It's like, because my name's on a building, and then it was just in.
And and you can see this difference.
It's just not going to be the same as somebody who spent time in the military, spent time as a lawyer, spent time, being like a governor, spent time being a consul.
And obviously,
it's not the same.
And obviously, it's not some sort of hard and fast rule that if you're like a businessman, you're going to know how to run an economy well, or you're just going to not be corrupt.
In fact, if anything, you would know how to not run an economy well.
But is there...
the political economy is different from economy.
There's not a lot of corruption in terms of Chinese politics?
Oh, there's a lot of corruption. There is no doubt. But then you have to more corruption than Australia. But you have there are certain things that are just... Look, if you look at, that scary Communist Party, that red room where all of them sit...
Yeah,
that
is scary.
It is scary, but all of those 600 parliamentarians in China, you make a list of them, right? And you check how many of them came from POV backgrounds and how many of them came from privileged backgrounds, and you do the same list in the Australian Parliament. you will see a fucking huge difference.
Yeah.
95% of Australian parliamentarians went to private schools.
Yeah.
Most of them come from really privileged class.
Yeah.
In the history of China, like since 1947 or 1949, the current Xi Jinping, the Winnie the Pooh, he is the only head of state that is actually a princeling who came from a privileged background.
Right.
They've created this one organization. I can't remember the name, but it's the envy of it's the envy of every corporation in the world. It is the most sophisticated HR recruiting process that China does. They choose people literally from the grassroots on whims of like they will potentially do great things.
Okay.
They recruit that from all over China. The bottom layer of how many people they recruit at any given point is around 60,000 people. And then they keep rising up the ranks.
Yeah.
And then eventually the Politburo is like 13 people. These are like, they're supposed to be the most vibrant and most enterprising young kids. And they make it a point to make sure that all these people that get selected don't get selected because they come from influential families. And this HR group that recruits all of these people is only subservient to the Politburo right at the top. All of these, they don't come under anyone's control. And they have created the most sophisticated HR recruiting process. And I think most corporations would envy it.
See, that's even an interesting part that China and other Asian countries, now that I think about it, they all have that system. They all have this system of like, in Australia, it seems like if you're going into working for the government, it's because you weren't talented enough for the corporate sector a lot of the time. Or you want a cushy job,
Well, not
right?
Albo.
Huh?
Albo's legit. Albo would be fit right in China, you know?
Yeah, but like the immediate inclination or the glamour of it is kind of just like going to corporate law.
Yeah.
There's some people that want to work in the public service, but for instance, like, look, the ATAR to get in for law at UNSW was like 99.9 or whatever. My degree was 95. It's not like they're like way worse, but they're not the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
They're still pretty smart, but they're not the smartest.
Yeah.
But I remember that when I was in South Korea and they were saying exactly the same thing about Japan, if you want to get a government job, you have to take this really tough bureaucrat test at the end of your university degree. And then you can get like a low-level government job. But it's like, it's really sought after. And I remember the guys that were studying for it, right? Like, you know, I saw them in inauguration day or whatever, and then, like, you know, at the end, they'd just be walking in some military uniform being like, "Hey, Jordan, how was your year?" Like, they were just in the library the entire year.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Japan does the same thing. So it's not actually specific to China, you're all right, which it saves us from the Pantera stuff. Same thing applies in Japan. They're just way more meritocratic. South Korea is similar. We just do our politics slightly differently.
But it's a cultural...
No, well, it's just like a thing of like a... I don't know. There's this idea. I think just the myth of democracy has seeped too far into the West. This idea of like anybody here can be deputy prime minister. Yeah, they can.
Right.
And look at what that results in: Barnaby Joyce. I think there'd be better people to be the second most powerful man in the country.
But it's not just that. Trump, if anything, Trump was reflective on this, the idea that Westerners tend to see more merit in glorifying someone that might be more inclined to a history of business than a history of government. Like, look at the reporting on Bernie Sanders. A government job is seen as someone that's sort of like a leech, low-life, lazy person.
Yeah. See?
And there's elements of truth to that, I would assume. But I mean...
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same in Korea. Like, it is referred to as like, they call having a job in the bureaucracy God's job.
God's job.
Yeah, because everybody knows that once you're in there, you're set. It's the same thing in Pakistan. They do exactly the same system there.
But do you think there's any merit to that sort of... I suppose it's not black and white, but I mean... No, in fact, I already know the answer to that. It's like, it is stupid to say that. You can't be like, people in government are lazy. It's like, what about CEOs? They're smart. It's like... it's just not accurate at all.
All right. Well, anyway, let's
Right.
before we get canceled, let's move on to a different topic.
Come on.
I don't know, man. Like, anything to do with China is just like really fucking tricky. And
Dude. Everyone's agreeing. Everyone's saying the Western wars killed more.
Actually,
people than
I have a
China.
really good meme which is just about this. It has nothing to do with
see
China,
it.
but Should we watch it? Should we watch this meme now because it's apt?
Yeah.
And then move on to our
thought that you could
Myanmar
go into the Myanmar chat, did you? No, not without us reacting to your memes. Thank you so much for sending them in. Make sure that you send them to Ali's email account, which I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure he'll fill you in on the
Podcast
details.
Friendly Jordies or my Instagram. Also, thank you for all the follows. That
You got some? Where you at?
I just told them that I had like a high school trauma and
How many?
Everyone wanted to pitch in.
yeah, like over 200 or something. Well, I'm about to reach my
Whoa.
target of 1,350. It's almost there. But check this out. This is exactly about that. It's fun. It's like
Make sure you contribute if you
don't
haven't.
cancel us for this because like it's a joke, but it's not my meme.
Oh no,
It's a
I'm
meme.
scared. Ali's it was Ali
Yeah,
all
and
along.
Ali,
He was going to be.
Ali said that he laughed at this for 10 minutes straight,
I
so
did.
he said that both of us probably won't.
All right, okay.
Right.
That's it.
I just hope it's not too racy.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
I want to be a physician. I want to invent a kind of medicine. People who drinks it will never die.
That's a very lofty goal, and I like it. That's very specific too. Nice. Okay.
What would you want to be in future?
I would like to be a terrorist. I said terrorist.
Who did?
Okay, I
Shut up!
I want to be a teacher. Please. Okay, I want to be
You want to be a terrorist, right? No!
Oh my god. That is cancelable.
Isn't that the greatest meme of all times?
Jesus, that was a TikTok. That wasn't even a meme.
I think the second one is an educational video. That is my guess of just like, if you say this, you will get your ass spanked.
All right, well,
Yeah,
it
dude,
was
that
great.
That is fact. There's
Run.
so much. There's too much to unpack in that to finish on. So I'm just gonna
Anyway,
leave.
so
Was
we'll-
it this first one from China or Japan?
I don't know. I think maybe Japan. I'm not sure where it was from, but
Is this how
don't
PewDiePie-
focus on like
This is
the,
how PewDiePie got cancelled. Is that true? I didn't know that.
Oh my
got
god,
cancelled?
how is he going to go by with his 100 million plus subs?
All right, let's move on to the Myanmar one real quick because we're
Oh,
going
we went
to soon
to-
run out of time.
Aw.
We'll do the. Do you want to just? Okay, let's just do the
Well,
all the
look at
memes
more
together.
memes.
May as well. All right, next one. Oh, actually, Jordan, this one's
Opa.
for you. Check this one out.
Hello, koala killer.
Is this your first day here? Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been opened yet.
Do you like it?
Hey, brother. Jiggly jiggly.
What the hell?
Is that Barrel?
Holy shit!
Is that Barrelara?
Ballsy motherfucker!
Bros, jiggly jiggly.
Holy shit!
Say.
I don't know which meme's better. Like that really topped it, man.
That was funny. Yeah.
Dude, that guy.
What the hell?
It's
So-
jiggly jiggly.
And they were both
space.
there.
Yeah, they were both there.
That's
It's really
amazing.
funny.
They heard that. They definitely heard that.
I think she was directly talking to him.
I thought it was the one filming, but either way, I'm sure that they knew.
Wait, was there an echo for this? Oh shit!
Don't know.
Well, that's your problem. The point is, it was amazing.
All right.
All you need to know is someone said koala killer to Gladys Berejiklian's
I'll
face,
play-
heckled koala
I'll
killer.
play it again without our mics, because apparently I think maybe that was doing it.
Now I'm going to get some peas.
All right, look, nothing's gonna beat that.
I
But
don't think so.
here's another one, and this one.
Honestly, whoever did that, raised the bar for us all, sir. That is really, to quote that fat guy from the 80s, democracy manifest. That was sick. Whoever you are, sir, I salute you. This pea's for you.
All right, okay. One more, and this one's for you, Miss.
For me, cool.
This Bosnian mobile. They're just saying, did you get it?
What did the text say?
So the Serbian one just said, this is Serbian latest technology. This is chicken pulling a guy.
Yeah.
And then this is Bosnia's latest technology. It's just a Mercedes.
I would have much preferred it if I said Croatian, but I'll allow it.
Close enough. Yugoslav.
Yeah.
All right. And then... All right, last one, which is...
But you didn't like the fact that it was a chicken pulling a car for Serbia?
I like that a lot.
Because even as a big supporter of Serbia, I liked it.
All right, this last one's for Jordan.
What's it say?
That says Jordan waiting for Labour to win an election.
I love those ones.
Hey, look, it's just kind of like a SpongeBob SquarePants thing with that up there as well. It's just like you look at me and then 27 years later.
Don't speak too soon.
And then it just pulls straight out of that meme, straight onto the original, the Richie Rich poster.
The Richie Rich one. That was our memes for today.
No, that was good.
All right. Thank you for that. Do really appreciate everybody that sent those in. Those were great.
Yeah, and the first meme is on me. I decided to play that. So.
Of course.
And also because I'm also third world, so I enjoyed it. Because that kid.
Oh, well, let's be honest, we all did.
Because I swear I know that kid. When I was growing up, I want to be a terrorist. Dude, I had friends who were like, when growing up, you asked them like, what do you want to do? I want to be a gang member.
Really?
But not in that accent. They were like, they wanted to be like criminal kingpins and shit. That's real third world shit.
Damn,
Well, that was their aspiration.
Yeah, like mafia dons was what they wanted to do.
Actually, now that I think about it, I went to Alexandria and there was kids there saying that.
Alexandria.
I remember one kid getting up. How psycho is this? Everyone else, what do you want to be? Fireman. Someone said handbag, which to this day I still laugh at. And when I was 6, I was like, handbag. But one of the guys said, I want to be a gangster and then I want to blow up the world.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Is that?
That's usually in order. All right, let's move on. Like quickly, let's move on to the Myanmar one because we've got like 10, 15 minutes at most. Actually, that's plenty. So,
all right, but make sure that you stay tuned for the Up Late podcast where we will be dissecting something that is much more pressing in global affairs. Just how good was Sting? The answer is extremely. So make sure you give us money for that. Now,
you want to hang around
don't
for
give us
that.
money for that.
You want to hang around for that.
Have you guys been following the news? Because I know because it happened just yesterday.
Most certainly have not been following the news. I did not follow the news.
Have you heard of?
They didn't have it on ABC Business when he was in the gym.
That's right.
So he's got no chance to see it.
The hilarious thing is I only watch the ABC. That's regular. That and I don't even get my news from Helen
You saw
Dalton.
when I was on there.
Yeah. I did live.
Yeah.
I was working out and Jordan's face like flew over a Chinese flag in ABC News. And I was just like, my life is so
Wait,
weird.
what? They're still like because you appeared on China Daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this podcast was great for that reputation.
Yeah, of course. Well, every podcast is. Let's not sell ourselves short.
Just like today's podcast.
And somehow people think that we're sympathetic to the Chinese.
But we weren't sympathetic. We're acknowledging that they're bad, but like just recognize there are some strengths.
Hey, that's why I'm here. I'm the one that says they're bad.
Okay,
You don't
sorry.
have to worry
Anyways,
about it.
No, you just have to say they're awesome.
I feel that quota.
Yeah.
So yesterday, Burma. Have you heard of Myanmar/Burma?
I gotta say, no, not really. I know.
You
I've
know
heard
even
of Burma.
Burma?
And I've heard of
Like
Burma.
a Burmese python?
I know.
You would have heard about
I know Burma.
their leader, Suu Kyi.
Oh yeah, Aung San Suu Kyi.
Who's she? And the reason
don't
you
know
would,
shit about
you know
Burma.
why?
Isn't he
Because
India?
that was the name of Joe's cat when we were growing up.
Oh, that's right. Is Burma near
Because
India?
she was a Burmese.
Is Burma near India?
She won the Nobel
Close.
Peace Prize recently. You've never seen her.
Look,
Damn,
no.
what a hot 70-year-old.
I'm not that versed in
Burmese.
Burmese current affairs. I'm afraid.
Well, so look, Burma just recently they had a military coup yesterday, and they overthrew the government and they took power.
Oh, really?
Yes, and
Burning up
it's
in
important
Burma.
to know about Burma because as an Australian, it comes under our realm of influence. So those of you who think
Bullshit.
Burma, who cares about Burma? It's
That's
like,
me. I'm one of those.
yeah, well, it kind of
Well, we
matters
all
to
are.
us. And
Well, I'll take your
we
word
have
for
played
it.
a very big role in a recent discovery, which I will find
Okay.
out. So, like, not
We discovered
we didn't
that
do shit.
Reebok
The-
is still pretty good.
The
Not as
Australian
good as,
Defence Force did.
humans, though.
So there was a military coup. So what happened? Burma has been. All right, quickly.
Go on. It's all good.
Burma was under British mandate, and it was kind of part of India.
Yeah.
And
see it.
and then like around late 1930s, Burmese people said that we're very ethnically different from India. It's true. They're more Asian than Indians. That probably wasn't necessary.
No, but they do look like exactly
necessary.
those people. You know what? They are exactly that. Because
She
when you're
looked
in
Indonesian.
Malaysia, what was the word again? Chindian. They look Chindian.
Yeah, they look Chindian.
Right, okay.
Chindian is also
Maybe
like,
that
yeah, it's
wasn't
like,
necessary. No, I'm joking.
Why wasn't that necessary?
But it's not-
That was more than necessary.
Well,
And I'll say it
now that-
again. Chindian.
Chindian is like
looked,
a common Desi thing to say, but now that you've said it,
Yeah,
as a white man,
cancelled.
it's off limits now. But anyway, so
Yeah,
like,
she looks like Indonesian.
yeah.
She does. Yeah, they do look kind of Indonesian,
Yeah.
but I do think
they
that
are
is
close
like
to
they,
Indonesia
it
too.
is weird because they do have that look of somebody who's like Nepalese, I suppose.
She's a legal alien.
She's a Burmese woman in India. Yeah. Don't get that reference? You will if you pay your membership to Patreon. Sign up for a $3 a week Patreon for a very specific reference that you will forget next week.
No, you won't. You will enjoy that one for life.
I stand corrected. It's definitely worth the money.
Yeah.
So after like so Burma
So
became different from India in the late 1930s.
Gotcha. I'm following.
Certain areas of what would be considered historical Burma became part of India, like places like Assam and shit. It matters eventually of like this ethnic distribution. But okay, so then what happens is they get independence around 1949, I think. And then for up until 1986, it's heavily influenced by China and just communism in general. There's heaps of warring communist factions that are, some are Maoist communists, some are other kinds of communists, some are some kinds of socialists, all the variations that you can ever imagine, basically fighting with one another for influence. After, in the late 80s, close to like when China opened up its borders and Soviet communism basically was about to collapse. So all of these warring factions became kind of, they launched a truce with what at one point was the socialist version of the faction, and they were running the show, and they basically gave up their arms. And military took over, and Burma became a strict North Korea-like military dictatorship.
Right.
For years. This Aung San Suu Kyi was basically, she is the daughter of one of the founding fathers of Myanmar during the decolonization process. She was living in, I think, in London. Around the 80s, her mom got sick and she came back to Burma to look for her. But this was a very politically active time for Burma because the streets were filled with protesters seeking democracy from the military. So the military, because it was like a very intense North Korea-like dictatorship, put Aung San Suu Kyi in house arrest for like a couple of decades, which is the longest ever house arrest of a political dissident.
She got Jordan's life.
She got Jordan. Well, Jordan chooses to do that. She was forcibly doing that. She was offered to leave, but she decided to stay. So she was a bit like Jordan.
Too raw.
But it's so accurate. Just replace my aquarium with a koi pond. It's the same thing.
Sorry, go on.
So then what happens is the military basically has her in house arrest. She becomes a household name in the Western world because she's like a westernized. All the optics of it are perfect, right? She's a westernized woman, as in like ethnically Burmese, but westernized woman, in house arrest by a military dictatorship fighting for democracy, right? All of these things work out really well in the mind of like, someone that constantly, how like Western journalists are, they look for heroes and look for villains, right?
Yeah.
So she fitted the hero category and the military fitted the villain category for them. So they gave her like a Nobel Peace Prize and everything, and she became a really famous person. In 2010, there's intense pressure by...
Hang on. Was her house mad?
I don't know, but I'm guessing it was. She was a rich woman.
All right, I'm going to look that. I'm going to have to Google that shit,
She was
Jamie.
she was like the daughter of like a very influential man.
I love how everyone at Friendlyjordies always goes for the house size. It seems to be a thing here. It's like, yeah.
That's an
How big's their
Australian
house?
thing. Property.
Yeah, it's
it's
so
the most
Australian,
stable
isn't it?
kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah, so you're
invention.
bloody...
Oh, well, it backs you onto a golf course.
you're bloody saying you're above the property bottle first thing. Yeah, how big is your house? It's double brick. Yeah, not good for winter.
Yeah.
So around the early 2000s, there was, and even almost up until like 2008, 2009, there was a lot of pressure by the West to basically dismantle this military dictatorship and open up the economy. There was that pressure from the West. There was the other pressure of the Burmese economy just hitting because it was like North Korea, right? The economy was really closed up. The Chinese at this point had already opened up their economy, and they were trying to convince the Burmese people, Burmese military, saying like, look, you need to get these fucking sanctions off your back, do it the way we did, start like fulfilling the demands that they're asking you to. It will eventually benefit you in the long run. The Burmese took that advice, and they decided to formulate a constitution.
Yeah.
Which came into being in 2008. The constitution was that we're not going to give up all our power to the Democrats, in this case Aung San Suu Kyi's party, which is the National Democratic League. We will continue...
Sorry, I was just got to say, it's such a sick house.
Shows the picture.
And I'm pretty sure it is double brick.
Oh, dude, that's an old house.
Don't you
know
think?
that's
It's
old?
old, it's got character, it's baller.
Aung San Suu Kyi's house in Yangon.
Whoa. Looks like a house in
It looks like a haunted
Vietnam.
house.
Yeah, I want that house.
That's a
Apart
cool
from
house.
the haunting part, that scares me. But the rest of it is
That's
cool.
what Ho Chi Minh looks like, by the way, basically.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh,
Well, this
Hanoi.
one house.
Hanoi. That one.
10 million people live in it.
Lots and
Wouldn't
lots of
surprise me. Yeah, okay, right.
So in 2008, the military came up with a constitution that they backed. And the constitution was essentially a power sharing agreement where the military said, we're not going to give up all the power to you Democrats. We're going to continue to play a vital role. So it was a hybrid constitution, so still not democratic. The conditions of that were that 25% of the lower house, their version of the lower house, is going to be reserved for military personnel. So in any parliament, 25% of the people are going to be serving military officers or recently retired military
Will they be
officers.
dressed in green or suits?
Green, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now
Or
that's
maybe-
a present.
Maybe suits, because like they have this. They also have a political front, which. So in 2008 they came up with that power sharing agreement, right? Basically, they also said that the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Ministry of Borders is going to be with the military. Like you cannot have a non-military person in those ministries. And the last big thing was that anyone, which was particularly directed at Aung San Suu Kyi, that anyone who has family members that are citizens of a different country can never be the head of state. Basically targeting Aung San Suu Kyi because both her kids are British citizens. So the way they so initially Aung San Suu Kyi and the National Democratic League boycotted the 2010 elections. That was the first elections that the military held. They boycotted that. What ended up happening was that the political party, which was basically the front for the military, which I think is called the Unity Party.
Oh, and by the way, just a little piece of trivia. Kevin Rudd helped set those up.
What?
He was the one that convinced the military to hold an election. And he was just like, yeah, it was rigged, but... Huh?
A lot of Western... but it was... Well, you find out that maybe it wasn't so rigged. So... they hold an election. The Democratic National League, the Aung San Suu Kyi's party, boycotts the elections, and basically the Unity Party, which is the front of the military, end up winning the entire elections by a landslide because they had very little competition.
Can I really quickly say, Swift the Parkleys said he or she, I'm a new Patreon. How do you join up to the late pod? Should we just tell them
If
before
you are a
going?
new Patreon, then like every week we upload a post that has the Upload podcast. So just scroll through the dashboard and you will find all of the Upload podcast. But okay, so
Cool.
So enjoy that.
yeah,
You've got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
I hope that you're doing some
that for
long...
Patreon?
yeah.
Yeah. You know what I heard happened once? It was the biggest compliment I've ever heard. Some boys came up to me afterwards and they seemed like lovely fellas. One of them had that gay 80s mustache that every friend group in Queensland has to have one guy that is straight now having that for some reason.
Love it.
But it was one of those groups where you thought, yeah, you guys are nice party rousers. They drove from Brisbane to Melbourne once and back. And you know what? They listened to all the Up Late podcasts on the way.
That's sick.
And they said at the end of it, their brains just worked exactly the same way that ours did. That we had brainwashed them.
So you can't listen to Up Late live? We want to watch.
No, you can't.
No, you can't listen to Up Late.
It's too saucy for that.
Yeah, you have to show out your love and get onto Patreon. Like, that's way too saucy for Twitch. That's
that's not happening.
It's too saucy to do live.
the
We can't-
behind-
we
it's the
can't.
BTN
There's
of
no way the
pods.
Uplate can be live. But okay, so look, the Aung San Suu Kyi's National Democratic League boycotts the election. I will come to present day scenario, and the Unity Party and the army end up sweeping that election. Then what ends up happening is that there are by-elections after the election that the army won, and the National Democratic League ends up contesting those by-elections and completely sweeps. Then in 2015, they contest the elections again, and they completely sweep the entire country. And lost in 2020, in November, they had elections again, and the Democrats again sweeped it by winning close to 88% of all the votes. And the
Who's
army-
voting for the Unity Party?
Well,
Oldies.
and here's the other thing: not just oldies, people that are like more into the people that support the military rule. They were benefiting during the military rule more than the democratic rule. The thing that there's a lot of stuff that's happened. So once the Democrats started winning after 2010, the by-elections, the economy started to open up. What Jordan is saying, Kevin Rudd brokering those deals. The sanctions were lifted off of Burma, now Myanmar, and they started making some money. But interestingly, here's another interesting fact, which Australia discovered.
You know what else? Just while you're talking about this, boys, how nice will it be when you can get on a plane again?
I'll go to Myanmar.
I just really miss being on a plane and being really dehydrated and tired and like eating that shit powdered egg.
I love that shit
while you're
powdered
watching an anime that is very subpar.
Yeah.
I miss that whole experience.
So do I. I love it. I like airline food because I feel like I'm in 1960s America on a plane. Like, I like it. It's like, here's your microwave dinner from the future. I like all that. Like, I don't like it. I enjoy the aesthetic of it. It obviously tastes like shit, but it's fun. So I agree.
Yeah, I enjoy the whole experience. And also kind of this feeling at the end of it of, I just cheated death a little.
Yeah.
I'm in a different time zone.
Yeah.
The Reaper can't find me here.
But apparently,
sorry,
I'll bring
continue.
you back to it. Here's something that I'll throw some carrots at you.
No,
Here's an
it's all
interesting
good.
fact about
I'm
Myanmar.
listening. I'm in.
Myanmar is now, Burma is now the biggest ice lab in the world. Most of Australian meth comes from Myanmar. The estimates are that the Myanmar
I've come in
ice
close contact.
business is close to $80 billion,
And
which
Aung
is
Suu
more
Kyi is the kingpin.
than their entire formal economy.
Really?
And not only that, the assumption was this is actually something that the Australian police force discovered, the federal police discovered. Because all of our meth is coming from Myanmar, we assumed, or we were looking into like where is this coming from, and the assumption was that the ice business in Myanmar is really fractured. There's multiple syndicates that are running this thing. The Australian police force found out that no, it's not actually fractured. There is one guy that runs the entire ice syndicate in all of Myanmar, who's apparently, according to some estimates, whose monthly turnover is $20 billion. He is the Pablo Escobar of today, but the only difference is, unlike Pablo Escobar, he hates media attention. And he is a Canadian-Chinese guy who went there for better opportunities,
Chineseburg.
who earns $20 billion every month
Are you fucking serious?
from this meth syndicate.
Can they get him?
Well, they eventually will get him, but here's the thing. This is where Myanmar's politics becomes interesting, because without knowing what's going on over there, you don't know how to get this guy.
Wait a sec. Canadian Chinese, do you mean like he talks like this? Or he's like, hey man, how's it going?
He's, hey man, how's it going? I'm Chinese.
So good.
So
Vape Nation.
Seth Rogen is running that country. He's like, just live it up, man.
He's possibly
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, he's bigger than El Chapo. He is earning. He's the Pablo Escobar of today that goes unnoticed.
Surely it's not accurate.
Pablos.
Surely it's not accurate.
$80 billion
It
a
can't be
year
true.
industry.
Can't be true. It can't be one person. It has to be like a small fucking.
That's what the AFP says, and that's what like a lot of estimates are saying.
How's that possible?
But this is how it's possible. I'll come to the eventual coup thing, but this is how this happened. When the communists eventually disbanded in Myanmar, all of those variants of the communists that were fighting against each other, they were given a free rein to do anything that they wanted if they gave up their arms, unquestioned, by the military. They ended up getting into all of the illicit businesses there were, and because they had basically the backing of the state, they were legalized illegal businesses. And that's what basically created Myanmar's like fertile soil for something like that eventually becoming a thing.
Person. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's one person. That's the discovery that we found out. It's actually not multiple people. It's one person who runs the entire syndicate. But so, and Aung Suu Kyi came into a lot of fire because the Rohingya Muslims were getting killed in Myanmar by Buddhist extremists, and Aung Suu Kyi was basically like kind of okay with that. She was okay with it because she thought if she let that happen, because dude, everyone in Myanmar hates Muslims, like hates these particular Rohingya Muslims.
And they're Buddhist.
They are Buddhist, but these Rohingya people are Muslims. Right. They say that they're not actually native. They're not actually native Burmese. They're Indian, Bangladeshis, or whatever. So the whole entire public opinion just hates Muslims, and Aung Suu Kyi basically defended that, and assuming that that's going to keep her into power. The West kind of disowned her after that. The Nobel Peace Prize Committee was considering taking her Nobel Peace Prize back. Right. And now in 2020, she was successful in the sense that the population supported her and she won the elections in a landslide. But the military is now saying, actually, you know what? You're getting too powerful, and I know you're trying to change some of those constitutional stuff that we put in, like having 25% of our representation. And also, we can't handle everyone getting too rich, so military coup back to like square one. But my guess is, unless I've been looking at the news, unless it's already happened, Myanmar/Burma cannot go back to pre-2008. There's already too much money over there. There's already too many freedoms over there. This coup is not going to last long in its current form.
Okay.
There will be pressure and there will be some sort of a reversal. So, there you go. Here's an update. Now, wake up.
But is the Bermuda Triangle real or not? That's right. Is it in Burma?
The Bermuda Triangle is very, very far away from Burma.
Did she make it?
Hey, where's Burma?
Did that lady make it?
Where do you think Burma is?
Near India. I said it earlier.
Yeah. It is.
I like all these little teeny countries that are like exactly what you were saying. Just all of those houses.
Yeah, that's sick.
I bet you that was probably the worst house there, and she lives there as punishment.
It's double Australia's size in terms of population. It's close to 50 million. It's not a teeny, it's a middle country.
But it's a teeny island, right? Like it's probably the size of North Sentinel.
No. It's bigger. It's bigger than
South
that. It's
Sentinel.
it's a moderately size. It's actually not even that together like Bangladesh. There's mountains. Actually, that's why it's been in constant insurgency, because the topography is perfect for insurgencies.
Right. Okay.
So it's actually rather big country, well scattered, and with a huge population.
Is North Sentinel a country made up of sentinels from the Matrix?
They're made of cheese balls.
Man, your ideas intrigue me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
You're so smart, and I outsmarted the both of you.
Yeah, you did. Look, the thing is, that's all you really need to know. This is Mislov's education to life. Just watch The Matrix 1, 2, and 3 a lot until the message sinks in.
S. Albanese said Agent Smith did nothing wrong.
Yeah. And Vancity...
Agent Smith didn't kill himself.
And Vancity Oliver, after listening to that entire thing, says, hey, who here has tried meth?
You know what I've nearly tried it. Technically, I think
That
I
does
have.
not surprise me.
Technically,
What? Are
I
you
think-
serious?
Well,
Yeah.
Did you have like a
technically,
cap
and we'll
that
talk
had-
about that in the Uplay podcast.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, okay.
Should we end now? But
Yeah,
we will
we're
talk
overtime.
about that.
We're overtime.
Yeah, but it was rad. Whenever I hear these stories, I'm, for all its failings and faults, I'm very happy to be in
Well,
Australia.
now you can look at when you read the ABC and like the entire thing is filled with Myanmar Coup. You know a little
I
bit
know
of context
straight up
about it.
No, dude,
what's
I
happening, where
appreciate
it came from, and where it's headed.
Yeah, it's rad. And do you suspect? Like you said, you suspect that she'll get back in. And it'll be all good.
She'll come back in some form or the other.
Do you
She's
like
an
her?
extremely popular leader.
Do you like her?
Yeah, she's all right. The thing is, like, man, whenever I look at these kind of things, I don't look at things as like hero
Yeah,
and villains. I
right.
look at it as like their interest. Like,
True.
the military. She basically kind of represents what would now be corporate Myanmar.
Yeah.
She basically represents the business interests.
So it's sort
So
of,
now
yeah,
you can look at
it's the way
and
it
obviously
goes.
the U.S. looks at business interests as
Good.
is good because like for them, democratic and corporations go hand in hand, right? Like to them, like business interest means benefit for the country. You might believe that, you might not believe that, but whatever it is, China for someone who's like China's going to step in and liberate them. China has taken a different approach. China doesn't like what's happened, but China said, "You guys figure out your differences." The Western world and United Nations has said that we are against this takeover and we support the democratic forces. So let's see where this coin ends up. But I'm guessing that this coup is not going to last long in its current form. All right, do you want to say goodbyes, Jordan?
Appreciate your time. Yes, and also make sure that you sign up to the Patreon where we will be discussing more things of great importance.
Sign
Such
up.
as, do you own any other hats other than that New York hat? We will find out on the Uplay podcast.
I can tell you now.
Well, you're not going to because
Okay.
that's why people are going to be signing up.
That's
And Ali, does he understand that Hawaiian shirts are supposed to have party colours as opposed to, like, I don't know, going to a funeral in Hawaii?
Hey, people die in Hawaii too, you know. Thank you for joining us,
That was
and we'll
being
see
naive.
you guys next week.
See ya.
For everyone.